Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the April Community AMA for the SKALE project. Hope everyone's doing well. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jack O'Haller, and I am one of the co-founders of the SKALE Network. I'm also the CEO of SKALE Labs on the core team. Guys, Connor and Chadwick, please introduce yourselves. We have a lot of new people here today.
Yeah, Chadwick Strange here, Head of Developer Success. Happy to be with you today at this AMA and really excited to get to answering some of your questions.
Great to meet everyone as well. Connor Murphy here, Head of Sales. Excited to work through this and share the tremendous amount of growth we've been going through.
All right, awesome. So, hey, we're going to try something a little different this time. We got some good feedback on the structure for last month's AMA. We're going to keep rolling with that. We're going to try to go quantity today. So usually we only will handle, 7 to 10 questions, something along those lines, and go really deep. We're going to try to do answer a lot of questions because we had a ton of questions come in. Okay, so let's get to it. We're going to try to set a record. All right. So continuing on with the prior. With the plan from last month, I'm going to start with an update. Chadwick, Connor, also welcome you guys at any point to jump in and add some color and context. Okay. All right. So first off, just want to talk a little bit about where we are from a macro perspective. And I'm not talking about, the financial markets in any capacity. I'm talking about the builder market. Okay. So we are seeing more growth than ever before in general for entrepreneurs and companies that want to build Web3 applications. Now, this doesn't include the kind of Me Too follower class that during the last bull market said, oh, I'm launching something. A lot of those people have shifted gears and mindset and they don't want to touch Web3. And that's great. They're tourists. They'll be back again when, it's the coolest thing and they'll be too late to launch anything. But the real builders, and there's a ton of them, more than I've ever seen before, are out building and launching. And they know that now's the time to build and you have to grow during these times. And I think we're it feels like a much stronger point of stability. There's high competition for deals out there now. So it used to be no one wanted to fund early stage seed deals and pre-seed deals. We now have people that now there are rounds that are going that you can read about this on Twitter and on different online sources. Like people are having to hunt for rounds and there's exclusivity. It's hard to get into good rounds. So it's nice to see the venture capital community is alive and deploying assets and allocating capital. That's good it's a good early indicator for builder momentum. All right. We as a SKALE project, I feel like are getting more and more percentage of that share than ever before in terms of growth. We had our biggest month in history in terms of from a core team perspective of new signed deals in a month. The month's not over. We're still hustling. And we've also really fixed some things we're going to talk about in terms of smoother, faster, more consistent, easy self-service onboarding, what we talked about in the last AMA. Okay. So one other note here, if you look at Connor, Chadwick, and myself, we're here on the core team. We are here to talk about the builder side of the house. We're not here to talk about anything else. We don't answer questions about anything other than where's the project as a project, okay? And our job, there are many, many people that are building, running, governing, approving the SKALE project. We are here as core team to really be facilitators and oftentimes like in situations like this, spokespeople on behalf of the many, many decentralized builders working on SKALE. Okay, so quick technical update to start. So archive node, fully complete and operational. All right. 2.1 release. As we mentioned, it went live right before the last AMA, fully functional, operational, kicking ass. Okay. What that means is the network's even more performant and stable. And you're going to start seeing more and more of that come to life. But go to GitHub. This is all open source. It's there. You can read about it. We know from we have short and long-term objectives as open source builders around SKALE. So the community has made an initiative to have stability and performance be the #1 criteria. future features, ZK, all of these other things are also critical, but they are things for the future. Right now, blockchain is still in a state. You can go look at our competitors. You can see their chains are reorging. They have tons of issues. They lose transactions during these pauses and downtimes. And we see that as a huge opportunity still to deliver the best and the fastest. And as part of that, we even saw this happen on the Nebula chain, where there was a interim period where the chain went into a pause mode to defend itself based off security properties, because a certain number of there's the Ethereum upgrade and like a Geth update required, and these things were happening. It was kind of a perfect storm of these three things that caused that chain to actually play defense and stop processing. But it didn't let transactions be lost. It paused transactions. Then it actually ran a decentralized DKG process with that restarted the chain, caught everything back up, did a catch-up protocol. It added a new node, and the chain is up and running. And it was like a decentralized magic around a like potentially like oh shit scenario that people run into in blockchain, our competitors run into. So it's nice to see that even during unforeseen circumstances, the recovery modes are intact. And that's again what makes Scale highly differentiated from side chains. Traditional side chains have all of these issues that if a certain number of nodes go down, and recovery, it requires all this centralized control and effort. Because Scale's connected to Ethereum, and because the Scale manager lets us one set of validators run all of these modular chains, we have all of these defense properties against attacks, but also recovery properties that make sure the assets aren't lost, that make sure that transactions aren't lost, and make sure that in a decentralized manner, healing can happen. So we saw that happen live. It was awesome. Obviously, anytime something pauses for a short period of time, that's not good, but the recovery is what's, I think, even more important. And that unique circumstance, I don't think we're going to see something like that again. So now the goals for next quarter are we want to keep improving, as I said, the stability and performance, but also integrate even more robust monitoring features. So in a decentralized manner, all validators, people, entities are able to be triggered and notified if something is happening in a proactive manner that's predictive, that can say, oh, hey, this thing's having issues, this thing should be looked at. Just like, high-powered enterprise software has monitoring and predictive components. Also, from a technical perspective, we completed a security audit that Chadwick can talk about later. That was awesome. Metaport is all baked and ready. There's just legal components around who runs the front end and making sure that the compliance element is in place. All of us are just helping build the infrastructure, but Metaport is a widget that helps people interact with the blockchain. So you'll see anyone who's going to use it will see there'll be legal language and things along those lines that are required for running front-end software. Okay, excited about that. 2.2 release is coming out. Chadwick will talk about this later, but IMA optimizations, improvements for high-performance dApps, node rotation improvements, archive node enhancements, start scale, where Scale ZK is going to be kicking off in a more robust fashion, and you'll be seeing specs and architecture come together as the decentralized developer community collaborates on that. There'll be even more increased network scalability. There'll be automated engineering customer response processes or partner response processes where in a decentralized manner, there's more automated and connected process for fixes and pushes, okay? The release monitoring API will be pushed out that everyone will be able to have access to see how our release is going and monitoring those, in addition to Scale Bridge and Scale SDK enhancements. Okay, now I'm going to talk about growth. We're going to shift off technical to the growth side. So one, I feel like as a project, we are really finding our sweet spot in the HPD market. This is a high performance dApp market. And why that matters is Scale has a unique advantage with zero gas fees for high performance dApps, especially if you go to DeFi and you've got 10,000 people trading, hundreds of millions of dollars, they don't care about gas fees. They don't care about delays. But if you have games and Web3 apps where lots of users, low transactions, sometimes zero cost transactions that need trustlessness and decentralization and smart contracts, those are huge sweet spots for Scale. Really finding our spot. From an onboarding perspective, there's an even more powerful decentralized onboarding that's coming together. Chadwick and some of the community members have been leading that. We're seeing faster, easier, more self-service onboarding for dApps to get up and running, testing, better documentation, better understanding what's happening. You can see this, for example, in Prospectors, 0x Battlegrounds, mini game that launched. Gamify, huge number of users on board. They're live now, launching, kind of going from Web 2 to Web 3. XP Network Live, Crypto Coliseum, Subsquid, Tatum, Rebel, AI Land, Ultimate Digits, Legends of Elysium, Roko Games, Prom.io, and Untitled, just to name a few, over in the recent months that have been announced. I guess last month's announcements, different announcements from all those partners. Next category would be partnerships. So partnerships are one way Scale is going to grow fast. Connor will be talking more about this later, but there are partners that are out there with sales teams and products that need Scale, and they are out there pushing their products and in a collaborative fashion, bringing Scale to market. And that's, again, the power of decentralization and the power of alliances coming together. And we see the power of alliances. We've seen that in traditional tech, where most of us have come from in the Scale project, and those partnerships are really coming together, and I think are going to be part of the secret sauce of Scale, to really have formalized partnerships and essentially partner to win. Okay, DApp Radar. We're looking at a very soon go live date for Scale DApp data on DApp Radar, which will be awesome. We're focused on building even more of those integrations with aggregators, and so everyone can see in real time what's happening within the Scale network. Another piece is just decentralization, further decentralization, even of core team components. The core team, ideally in a project, is always doing less and less, and there's more and more people working. And so right now there's product marketers that are focused on 3 categories of DeFi, gaming, and general Web3 and validator market, that all are working in different places across the globe, working on product marketing for Scale within those categories. And they're not part of the core team. They're collaborators. They're working for the network, but working in a super hardcore, high performance capacity. That's just one example of many where there's more and more hands on keyboards and minds thinking about Scale that are happening, in a collective fashion. Titan, we're ready to start seeing dApps go live on Titan, the community chain, soon. So that's going to be awesome to see Titan kick off. And also Chaos Chain rolling into mainstream, where it's a fully permissionless chain that anybody can deploy to. And there's going to be chaos in terms of, there's control that chain owners have around faucets and DDoS protection and proof of works. And this is going to enable a zero whitelisting process for go live, and try to rely solely on these protective mechanisms, and with a integrated tip component to keep paying for the chain in a decentralized manner. It's kind of an experiment that's community run that I think is going to be really cool. And in general, last point before we get into the AMA questions is we are at the point to scale. Okay. We've been talking about this for a long time, but all systems go, we're seeing the results, and it takes work from a lot of people. So props to all the validators running nodes, all the community developers testing, all the dApp developers testing and deploying and contributing back to documentation, contributing back to processes and Metaport feedback, the growth and the marketing and the collaboration happening across all the games and the Web3 applications, as well as just a lot of effort from many people. So thanks everybody. Community, obviously, anybody watching here today, this is a community run project, and all of your help and effort and support is what makes this strong, this effort strong, from a collective perspective and and holistic perspective. All right, we're going to get into AMA questions. Before we do, Chadwick, do you want to any thoughts on that, and then Connor?
Yeah, I also want to thank the validator community. They've been very active and very supportive in getting these critical updates and as well feature updates to the Scale network. They've been super helpful and instrumental in these to go live, as well as collaborating around to ensure that the Nebula chain can repair itself. So yeah, thank you, Scale validators. There was huge contribution there, just showing the power of the network, the power of the repair procedure, the self-healing sort of security measures. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in there. Yeah, it's been great being on the front lines and just seeing the growth that the community has been realizing. And you know, I think a lot of efforts pay out down the road. And we launched V2 last summer and really started to spin up what our go-to-market plan would be. And we're starting to see that pay out. And our growth on a quarter-over-quarter basis is doubling. And even in the month of April, we're doubling the growth from all of Q1. So it's been really exciting to see it front lines, and really excited to share more about it as we get into this AMA and just further announcements down the road.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, good. A lot of good stuff from, you know, everybody. It's paying off, this collective work. You know, our goal is to have more developers than any building on Scale and Ethereum than any other Ethereum scaling solution and any other blockchain. So we're, you know, takes a lot of people coming together, which is a great lead into the first question. So Andre and Zej _BTC. When can we expect on-chain governance for Scale fully available for the community? So we've been talking about this a lot. You know, for decentralization purposes, I don't push this. Our core team doesn't push this. I'm going to go back to last I saw it was very, very close. I'm going to go talk to the people after this and say, when can we get, you know, the proposal pushed to the forum by the end of the month? That's what I would like to see. The value of decentralization is there are a lot of people involved moving things forward. You know, one of the detriments is that things sometimes move slower than if a centralized team were fully in control. So I hope we see that. Let's see, it's the 27th. So I think there's good odds that will be pushed forward. And then I welcome people to participate in the forum and collaborate and add feedback. And then hopefully that feedback will be incorporated, or that proposal will be approved enough to kick off the first vote. And what I've seen is that proposal, what the draft I saw was that the voting structure is what the proposal is on, and then a positive vote would ratify that voting mechanic, okay? And so instead of just saying, hey, here's how voting works, boom, it requires a positive vote to approve the voting process, okay? But it first requires enough positive sentiment, and just like in Ethereum manner, to approve that, you know, for that to even like get to that next stage. So here we go. Let's do it. In the interim, as everyone has always said, there'll be zero economic changes to the network until there's any sort of on-chain voting. So the network's still running in a decentralized fashion without on-chain voting. Any sort of upgrades are all happening on behalf of the validators in a decentralized manner, and any sort of smart contract upgrades are happening in a decentralized multi-sig approval process through many different organizations. So, okay. Chadwick, can you give us more? This is from Jennifer. What's upcoming on the roadmap? I talked a little bit about it. Can you go a little deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of stuff on the roadmap. Immediate deliverables for the roadmap will be the Metaport bridge in combination with a new version of Metaport. So again, these work in concert with each other. Metaport is a embeddable widget that all Scale dApp developers can integrate into their dApp. It provides a consistent UI to guide users through transferring or conducting operations between any two Scale chains, as well as any Scale chain in Ethereum. So it's really beautiful in terms of you know, an easy lift for a developer to provide that widget, and as well as users to navigate the multi-chain environment of Scale network. In concert with this, there's another UI layer called Metaport Bridge, which is mainly works in concert with,
Metaport Bridge UI, right, Chadwick?
yes, Metaport Bridge UI. Works in concert with Metaport Widget that allows first-time users or people just getting introduced to Scale, very simple flows, very simple ways to basically bring token assets into the network to various dApps, as well as multi-chain hops. For example, transferring tokens from Ethereum by way of Europa into Nebula or in some gaming dApp on Nebula. So really excited about that. That should be launched very soon. There's also, in the more deeper technical stack, Scale ZK and Scale G. There'll be really interesting specifications and architectural details on this soon. I know Stan and the engineering team has been working really hard at this, so really excited to see to eventually have that public and available to the community.
Yeah, Stan and a lot of good also community developer in it, support, and a lot of smart people coming together.
Yeah, with external contributors and whatnot. So really excited for that. IMA optimizations. The developer community has been providing a lot of feedback on IMA speeds and basically doubling down on the performance ability for the native bridge, IMA bridge. So that'll be coming out soon. Scale Oracle, or otherwise known as Scale Connect, will be coming out soon. I think Jack will touch upon this and maybe in another question in the future, but very excited about this. This will be another native feature layer available to every single Scale chain, as well as stability and memory improvements to the Scale chains themselves. The developer community has provided a lot of feedback on high performance dApps, really seeing people finally push Scale chains to the limit, which is very difficult to do. With 400 to up to 700 transactions per second. This is a difficult thing to achieve, at least from a simulated environment from the dApp side. But there's been a ton of great feedback and pushing more stability improvements forward on this. There'll be a lot of other community and other third-party contributions to the roadmap. This includes SDKs to help the transition of Web2 developers entering Web3. A lot of SDKs to double down on providing infrastructure and tooling for game developers, as well as some DeFi tooling, including on-ramps and bridges and whatnot. So there's a ton of stuff on the roadmap, both from the community side, as well as the Scale developer community and validator side.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're excited for, there's always going to be more. 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. Can't stop, won't stop. Scale will keep growing forever. And, I think, the more and more people can get to contributing to GitHub, the better. So if you're a developer, you're listening. If you're not a developer, you're listening. I please just encourage you to go to GitHub. If you don't have a GitHub account, set one up. And you can actually see every single feature, bug, etc., being worked on in Scale. Fully open source. There's nothing happening. It's all building in public, and lots of people want information, but the information's there at any given time for you to see it. And it's the same views that engineers that are working on it look at. So you actually literally have a shared work interface that you can see with all the people that are collaborating to build Scale. Okay. Next question. So I've heard rumblings about Scale Connect. What is it? This is from Jessica. Great question, Jessica. Scale Connect, I think, is kick ass in the sense that it's the Scale chain can read ownership of any asset on any other chain, in particular an NFT, and be able to let that, your NFT is one use case, let that same user, the same 0x address, use that NFT over in Scale without any transferring or custodial components because of the Scale Oracle, okay? Which is amazing. So you could have all these really high, let's say you have an ape on the Ethereum mainnet. Well, you don't want to put that in a lock contract, because what if that contract has an issue? You don't want to wrap it and move it to a layer 2 environment or e-scaling environment because it's worth $1 million. And you're like, oh, that's, I feel more comfortable if it just stays on Ethereum. Well, guess what? Scale Connect knows that you have that, and you could go over to the game and play with it, or maybe get certain rights to mint other things on that layer 2 chain or Scale chain instead, because you have that on the mainnet. You don't need to have any custodial risk or gas fees to swap anything. And so that's what Scale Connect does, and it opens up NFTs on pretty much any EVM blockchain to be read and utilized and consumed and leveraged for utility within the Scale network. So excited for that to launch. All right. All right. Shared security and app-specific chains are hot right now, which Scale already has. How do you capitalize on that narrative? That's from George. Hey, Connor, you haven't had one. You want to go first on that? I know I was going to take that, but I feel like you haven't had one yet. So go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Which, yeah, you jumped in front of there that Scale already has, but it's great that this is now an industry-wide narrative and folks are starting to understand the value of UX, and more so the value of the UX coming from an infrastructure that has this shared security. So now that narrative is out there and the wind is at the back of the Scale community, it's on the entire Scale community and developers and partners to really leverage that framing within our discussions within internally and externally, specifically with developers or enterprises that we're talking about, or industry folks when we are educating them what Scale has done. And we've been building for this since 2018, and the industry is finally catching up to the value props that we've been pitching around UX, and not only UX on a sidechain, but UX from the shared security pool. And we're excited that it's finally there. And not only that it's there, but we have a working product for it. So it's just leveraging that to extract all the face time we can have in the industry and make sure that developers know that Scale is the best place for them to build applications.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a hot narrative, and really it's all about having one pooled validator set, lots of chains, and you also in a roll-up environment, they'd call these shared sequencers, shared security sequencers, where they're the sequencer is living decentralized on the chain, the modularized chain. In the Scale world, once Scale ZK launches, then we have parity, we have shared decentralized sequencers. We also have shared security chains already, which are, I think the absolute future for the HPD market because of speed, cost savings, and already great security. And one of our goals and challenges as a Scale community is to make sure people know that. All of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, pooled security. I was in Tokyo, and I was having dinner with this big group of people, and they're like, well, but doesn't, they're like talking about this. And I was like, well, Scale's been doing that for a long time. And that, someone said, well, doesn't Scale, each Scale chain though has its own unique set of validators, and those validators only are one-to-one on that chain. It's like, it's not a pool like you see, shared pool. I was like, no, it's a shared pool, and there's containerization. And I explain this to people, and like every time we explain this, like this light bulb goes up over their head, because I think people are easy to categorize Scale as a side chain, because we were innovating in this category before other people or other projects. Our project, our collective group of people building here had a future vision, which I think is really awesome to see that's coming. But we've got to capitalize on. The number one way is just obviously to get as many developers as possible building, and as many users as possible using applications that are running on Scale, and they help the developer community be successful here. But there's also a narrative piece and a broader awareness piece, and there's some cool stuff coming together there to make sure that this broad awareness and education is happening. And obviously, community plays a huge role in that. Okay, the more and more we educate people collectively, the more effective we'll be. All right. So let's go here for Chadwick. Does Scale, is there MEV on Scale, and does MEV affect the Scale network? This is from Dui Dong.
Yeah, great question. So one of the things with MEV, MEV has been a huge discussion on Ethereum. I think one of the latest gas porting contracts on Ethereum is some MEV bot that's just been deployed. On Ethereum, you have a finality that lasts quite a long time. You have a mempool and you have a finality, and this is how these MEVs are able to then mine the mempool and be able to perform their attack. On Scale, however, Scale is an extremely has extremely performant chains with high transaction throughput, but instant finality. What Scale means by that is the time to finality is the same amount of time as the block time. So be able to like pull from mempool, it's almost nearly impossible to do that in that small fraction of the time where a block is finally appended onto the chain, and where you have a decentralized set of validators. So again, on Scale, there's instant finality. The time to finality is the same time as the block time. Another feature that Scale has is threshold encryption, where all the transaction queues can be encrypted using the BLS threshold encryption technology. So this is another way around it. It's maybe like a double standard against any MEV attacks. So that combined, I think, puts Scale in a different environment where MEV is very much reduced in Scale network.
Yeah, and you could think about it. So most blockchains, there's a process for the validator. I'm talking about proof of stake blockchains. The validators, a certain percentage of them have to prove that something happened. And then when that happens, then there's this time after that for the system and the rest of them to kind of network and say, okay, did it happen? A transaction could happen, but it's not final. And in that period of time, that on some chains is like minutes or, lots of minutes, that during that time, a validator, miner can go and actually like reorder things or take advantage of this insight and front run transactions. Okay. And here's an example that doesn't have to do with DeFi. Like for NFTs, people can see that this really high quality wallet that's really good at buying NFTs bought that one, and they can go in and like try to buy it before them within that like X number of period. And so these wallets that are denoted as like, seer or like, smart buyers of NFTs get front run on their NFT purchase. And they're like, oh, I got it. And they see it. Then there later, it's like not there. Like what happened? Well, because you got front run, somebody, the validator took it from you. And so you just can't do that on Scale, because as soon as 2/3 of the nodes come to an agreement, consensus is finalized and it's done. Now, the time to finality is something that requires the networking for that all to happen. But the second the transaction happens is the same, or millisecond the transaction happens is the same millisecond the block is finalized, because it's instant. Okay. All right. So it's a huge advantage for Scale. You're going to start reading more about that. These decentralized product marketers are building some really cool educational and awareness materials around these, what I'd call sub features, because they're really critical, but there's so many things to talk about. They usually aren't the first thing you read. All right. Okay. This is from Paragon 49. How is Scale team going to attract more chain subscribers? Partnerships are growing, but the number of chains is remaining stable. Why is that? Do some projects run on the same chain, or is it because it takes a fair amount of time to properly deploy them? So this was a great question. And so the answer, I'll give my quick answer, then Connor will go, is it only takes minutes to deploy a new chain, okay? But the network, I think, can run around 80 chains right now with the current minimum stake, the MSR, and the setting and the node sizes. Now, if the chain sizes were super small and the MSR were lower, that same number of validators could run thousands of chains, but each chain would have less throughput and less capacity and less storage. What's happening now is the chains are meant to be bigger, they're medium size, and so there's just can be less of them. We've said in the past that, there can be X number of Scale chains. That's true. It's all about the settings. How do you do the settings? So one, there's only about 82. Each time a chain exists, there's coordination in terms of mapping to get there and for users to get money there. And so we've found the voice of the dApp developers said, hey, we want to start partnering up and have a lot of us go on one chain. Like Nebula is a gaming chain. So there's lots of dApps going on Nebula. The Titan's going to be a community chain for all these random different types of dApps and Web3 projects, and all these different non-game projects are going to start going on Titan. And these are hubs, and so they end up pooling And they do that because also they can share money. I mean, it's going to be hundreds and thousands of, it might be 500,000 USD when the voting is approved to rent the chain for a year. And, they want to share that cost as well. It makes it more economical. But then you'll see as the capacity goes up, the MSR will drop all through this voting process. And the network can keep growing, and also new nodes can join. Oh, and sorry, sneeze, allergies. As new nodes join, the network can also keep adding capacity. So strategically, the developers and validators have said, hey, let's try to use hubs. Connor, do you want to address that?
Yeah, happy to. And to piggyback off on that, the reason why they use those hubs is because of the throughput of Scale. And obviously, I'm sure many of the community members have seen the Dartmouth report and what Chadwick mentioned about the 400 transactions per second. So when you play that out over a year, you have billions of transactions being able to be run on one of these single chains. And we currently have almost 20 that are live right now. So to have one single application individually one-to-one on these chains is a little bit of overkill. So the community decided, hey, we can actually come together in these cohorts. And Nebula is for the gaming hub, Calypso is for NFTs, Europa is for DeFi and liquidity, and Titan for the broader community, where they can actually work together as a community, as this decentralized group that has shared ownership of this chain and direction of it, where it makes the onboarding process easier, and they still have plenty of capacity to grow. Now, separate from that, we do have enterprises and large Web3 studios and larger games that want to have the full ownership of a chain, and we can continue to grow limitlessly along that if they feel like that cost benefit makes sense. And there are ones in our queue that are looking to go that route, but more of these agile, nimble Web3 games makes more sense for them to onboard onto this community where there's already active players at base.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Great answer. Thank you. Chadwick, this is from Rad10. What are some of the key technical features of Scale that differentiate it from other blockchain platforms? How do these fit the scalability and network? Now, that's a broad question. We already talked about a bunch of them. Maybe talk about one we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch, but given high level, I'll kind of keep it high level and network wide. I'm just going to rattle them off, and then I'm going to go quickly into each detail. So multi-chain with horizontal scaling, Ethereum native with pooled security, BLS threshold signatures, asynchronous binary Byzantine agreement consensus, node rotation. I've just described a lot of the key infrastructure features of Scale, and these all contribute to both scalability and security. So multi-chain, there's currently over 20 Scale chains live on mainnet right now. Every single one of those chains has the full bandwidth of 400 up to 700 transactions per second with instant finality, a time to finality of 1.46 seconds. That's huge. So Adapt can even use multiple chains if they need to reach that amount of throughput by horizontal scaling. So multi-chain is a massive feature that Scale Network provides. Ethereum native. So the entirety of Scale Network is orchestrated from smart contracts that exist on Ethereum. What does this mean? Well, there's a set of smart contracts called Scale Manager. Scale Manager exists on the Ethereum mainnet, which contains all the registered Scale validators, their Scale nodes, as well as all the information for each Scale chain. So all the 20 Scale chains has data information that's all orchestrated and stored on Ethereum mainnet. So you can go to Scale Manager on mainnet and then query all the data, and you'll get all the data of Scale Network, all the Scale chains, individual validators. And that's really important because when a validator joins or when a Scale chain is deployed, it requires the pooled security of Ethereum validators to verify and validate that transaction, that Scale chain request transaction. So Scale has its own Scale validators that provide an extension of that security, but then the base security of the orchestration of the network is all pooling from the Scale from the Ethereum validators, and that's extremely important to security mechanisms as well as scalability. BLS threshold signatures. This allows a random subset of validators from Scale nodes to basically come to agreement or sign messages. And this is really important for appending blocks onto the Scale chain. So a threshold of validators can come to agreement and append that block to the chain, and that can be performed very quickly. There's some fault tolerance that's a part of that, and as well as message signing. So the Scale network validators that are supporting a Scale chain can verify messages from Ethereum or from any other Scale chain and come to a threshold agreement to basically sign that transaction, provide that message on the Scale chain. That's really great because it's very performant. Scale bridges and message transfers take about 18 seconds from chain to finalize. This is unlike other bridges where it might take minutes, hours, or days for a message to completely finalize between any two chains. And BLS threshold signatures provides that speed. And then asynchronous binary Byzantine agreement, again, time to finality and the ability for chain repair, as well as just coordinating these messages very quickly. The Byzantine agreement consensus that Scale applies is extremely fast and extremely fault tolerant. And then as well, containerization. So every single Scale chain is orchestrated from separate containers on the node. So if one Scale chain's bandwidth is at its peak, that does not affect other chains in the network. So there's like a separation of concerns. If one chain happens to pause and undergo a repair procedure, the other 19 chains in the network will operate just as normal, as expected. So containerization is a great technology from Web2 that I believe Scale has really applied in a really effective manner for Web3 and horizontal scaling for blockchains.
Awesome. Well said, Chadwick. Great. Good question, Rad10. Okay. Yefu, this one, Connor, take this one, please. What do you think about the games that are being developed in Web3 and how successful will they be? When will real players and companies from Web2 come to Web3?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the games being developed, I guess taking a step back, we've had maturation in the blockchain space and specifically within gaming. And you had your first gen games within blockchain that were, effectively skin DeFi products. And then you've had games since then that have continued to evolve, but maybe they're more of like a skeuomorphic type of product, which I look at it as it's just as similar as Web2 game. And you're doing some things on the back end within blockchain, but you aren't really innovating. But things I'm really excited about moving forward, and definitely something that we saw at GDC, is the innovation that people are actually doing within the game mechanics and the incentivization model and user retention. And now developers have had years to think about how they can use this back-end technology to make games more fun and actually provide that ownership, which is at the core base of a lot of us while we're doing blockchain. And I think that kind of plays into when are the real players and companies going to move into it. I mean, the real companies are definitely here and here to stay. But from a player perspective, Web2 dwarfs what Web3 is. And I look at that because the only way Web3 is going to catch up to that is when UX is on par, but then also provides this additional ownership and incentivization model. And natively, that ownership and incentivization is baked into blockchain. So now it's all about UX. And here at Scale, and the Scale broader community is focusing on bringing that UX up to that Web2 and even further.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, I have to say, it's really becoming apparent that gaming is gaming is just a massive, massive industry. Like, collectively hundreds of billions, right? Like, it dwarfs the movie industry, for example. But gaming's very diverse. Like, you have mobile games, you've got casual browser games, you've got downloadable games, right? You've got console games. There's all these different types of games and different types of segments of players. The nice thing about Web3 is that it fits in for all of those.
Oops,
Looks like we might have lost Jack there.
They'll be back.
Yeah, well, let's as we wait for Jack, happy to move on to another question. I had one here that I was excited to see someone ask. This is from looks like Jack's back on.
Yeah, I got booted. I don't know what happened. I'll finish that thought. I was just gonna say there's certain areas where there's less friction though, because if you need Nintendo to approve you on one end for consoles, or you need Apple to approve you to the App Store, you just have a lot more friction. It's a lot easier to right now to launch casual games and browser games. And I think I personally think there are going to be some amazing browser games that launch for Web3 over the next few years. Because guess what? That's where your wallet is. That's where your money is. And we're going to see a lot of growth there. But it is not, they aren't mutually exclusive. Scale's focusing on all of them, and we're excited about it. Okay. We already, I guess we have a next question from Barry Brains. Is that the one you're reading, or?
I was going to add to the Denker one.
Okay. I'll handle let me handle the Barry Brains real quick. So thank you, Barry Brains. So seeing that a lot of gaming platforms have been building on Scale network in the past few months, does Scale plans to build its own blockchain game? The answer is no. We want to just support all the other gamers. Scale as a project has, all the resources we have need to go towards supporting games. If we're building our own, I personally think it'd be too distracting. I mean, if somebody wants to put a community proposal to do it, great. But because it's an open source project, I'd love to hear you out. But right now there's just so many builders that we just need to help them be successful, and we'll all be successful in our efforts. Okay. Denker, two from Denker. I guess just one. I'm really curious, how can Scale work with zero gas fees? How's this possible? Chadwick, why don't you answer that?
Yeah, happy to. So on every single Scale chain, there is a gas token called S-Fuel, but there's no economic value to this S-Fuel. And how is that done? Because a lot of people then say, well, on other networks, paying for gas fees then get distributed to validators. On Scale, there's a slightly different model where Scale chains are paid up front or rented for a part of that bandwidth of the network. So when someone goes to deploy or request or provision a Scale chain, they deposit Scale tokens being the utility token that provides the incentive power for validators to provide computing power. A developer will deposit Scale tokens for a certain number of months to rent that Scale chain over that time period. So that Scale token then incentivizes the validators to provide the compute power. So, and said another way, it's as if the developers are paying for that network bandwidth ahead of time and allows the developer's users to then transact on that network in a free environment. The other key feature that adds on to this is Scale chains can have this spectrum of permission and permissionless layer that can be determined by the Scale chain owner. So the Scale chain owner is effectively the entity that has permissioned access to control or admin the chain. And this could be a single EOA, it could be a multi-sig, it could be a contract, a DAO. It's up to the Scale chain owners or the entities to determine what that is, what that governance structure, that permission structure is. And from there, they can then, this entity, the owner entity, can distribute S-Fuel being the gas token, the free gas token on Scale, distributes the S-Fuel token to users so they can transact freely on the Scale chain. And as well, they can control and allow permissive or permissionless access to different parts of the Scale chain. There's a number of different permission systems that are available. So this is how Scale works with works with zero gas fees. You do need to have that gas token in there to prevent DDoS attacks. But to the user, it doesn't matter how much of this gas token you have, just matters that you have the minimum amount that you need to conduct your transaction. And once you conduct that transaction, that gets mined or burned on the Scale chain and it gets recycled. And then the user's topped up with S-Fuel along their process as they continue to conduct transactions. So it's a very different model than other blockchains where the gas fee is then distributed to the validators and is the performant and sort of DDoS protection for that chain. On Scale, it's pretty much flipped. where that network bandwidth is paid ahead of time using scale tokens. And then users can transact freely with this free S-Fuel gas token.
Okay, great. We got a record to set. So we got to hustle. We're gonna have to do some faster answers in the tail end here. So Connor, I'm an event producer. This is from Sage. I'm an event producer of WIFT Australia, Women Film and TV. I want to inquire into creating a global WIFT NFT membership so that the country chapters can access each other's events and workshops and collaborate more. How would I do this on Scale, for example? So maybe just talk about, a little bit about that and how to get started and where Sage can reach out.
Yeah. Simple answer to that. You can go to the Scale website and sign up for one of our innovator programs, or specifically our NFT one, and they'll get you in contact to one of the Scale core team members, which can help you in planning this out and architecting this. So if you've got an idea, either this specifically, which is great for Scale because you can mint those NFTs on Scale for free, and those users can have the utility of those NFTs for free, or other broad ones, please reach out. There's many forums either on the website or through our Twitter.
Okay, awesome. All right, from one of our favorites, Flensman, when will Speedy Game Mode be introduced? Chadwick.
Flensman, it's already out. It's called multi-transaction mode, Speedy Game Mode. It's been out for a while and already in use by multiple, by almost all our all the Scale DApp developers.
Yeah, so it's it went through a rebrand. Speedy Game Mode is now called MTM Mode because a lot of non-gaming products can use it. Multi-transaction mode, MTM mode. All right. Connor, what kind of partnerships and collaborations do you have in the work for Scale? How do you see Scale expanding beyond its ecosystem and impact the coming years? This is from Zuleimon 311.
All right, this probably deserves more time, but in a concise fashion, we've got two big categories for partners. It's our growth partners and our ecosystem partners. Within that growth partners, in the fashion of decentralization and community building, we want people like the community here that have Scale tokens to be working for Scale in and out every single day. And that's what our growth partners do. So we can have these force multipliers. And then separately, we have our strategic partnerships that we're working on a daily basis that builds out our ecosystem, that makes a smoother and better building process for our developers, all with the end goal of having a great UX.
Okay, next one from Matt. Is it possible for Scale to facilitate interoperability with other blockchain networks in the future, not just on Ethereum or other EVM networks on a wider scale? So one cool thing, Matt, Scale already has a connection to Binance chain. Binance, I guess BNB chain now, old Binance Smart Chain. So Crypto Blades is actually bridging over from Binance and connecting into Scale as a connected scaling experience for zero gas fees. So users who are buying NFTs, et cetera, on Binance can bridge over with their NFT and start playing on Scale. And so one cool example, there'll be a lot of those in the future. Scale zero gas fees are strong value prop, even for lower cost chains like Binance, BNB chain. Okay. Let's see here. Let me pick a quick one because that's a really long question. Chadwick, this is from Lenive Sa. What are the block gas limit and contract code size limit on Scale chains?
It's 260 million block gas limit with a 64 kilobyte code size limit.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, we've got 2 minutes. Maybe we can really push the record further. Let's look here. This is from Nikita Blue. What is the default empty block interval on Scale chains? Chadwick.
10 seconds.
Okay. Wow, that was a fast one. All right. You already answered what is Scale Fuel and how's it used on Scale chains from Mark SY. But yeah. Okay, well, Chadwick already answered that. Boom, we're counting it. All right. Hey, our goal today was just, sometimes we go really deep on, we look, and there's a ton of questions we didn't address. There's just so many great questions out there, hundreds. So we're trying to hit more of them because we want, all of your voices matter. There's a lot of really smart questions. We also want to pick questions that are tough and not just show that Scale is great. We want to, answer hard ones. So, really want to get into, each month make sure there's an open access point for people in the community to ask questions. So sometimes we just want to go really deep and make sure we answer as many as possible, but with brevity. So today was, we didn't get to as many as I wanted, but I think we got into a lot of depth, which was great. So Connor, Chadwick, thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's great to represent the Scale core team, but broadly the Scale community. This is a community project, so we're all here to continue to build and push it forward.
Yeah, great questions. Really appreciate it. Really excited to see the community ask these questions, get involved, as well as the developer community. I saw one question in there about how do developers get involved with Scale Network? We have a doc. There's a Scale Network docs. There's a Scale Network Discord server. I'd say jump in there, get into the developer chat, start asking questions. There's a great community there to help onboard you, give you recipes, get you access to test nets. So I encourage you to do that as the Scale community, as developer community is growing quite rapidly.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. As always, we appreciate your time, and let's keep pushing. All right, everyone. Bye.